So I hope there's not too much wind noise. I wanted to film this, at least start filming this outside. It's really it's kind of inspired by what I discussed in my last video, which was that there had been a bus attack, actually 2 different bus incidents within like a 24-hour period in the town I'm in. And so I wanted to talk about that in a bigger sense. There's some things I haven't told you that have happened since I've been here, which kind of, in combination with the hearing about the bus attacks, really kind of enlarges this issue, I guess. So the reason I want to talk about the first one in the park is this is where an incident happened to me a little over a week ago. And I haven't talked about it on a video, I haven't talked about it in a live stream. But I was sitting at the park just like this. I was on a Wednesday afternoon last week, and a group of kids, like there weren't that many people in the park that day because it was kind of drizzling and stuff. Today it's windy, but it's nice out. And anyway, this group of kids kind of approached, they walked down the avenue towards where I was sitting on a bench at the side, and I don't know if there was anyone else really around, but they were like high school age kids. The thing that was distinct, and I noticed it even looking at him from a distance, is one of the kids, a boy, had a weird mask on, and it was like a stretchy mask, like a fabric mask, but it had weird distorted faces on the front, and I thought that was odd. And but I didn't feel any like danger from it or anything. I mean, if they'd all been wearing a mask, I think I probably would have had my alarm go off in my head. But it was just the one kid, and they were laughing and whatever. Well, when they got up close to where I was, this kid with the mask broke off and came over to me, like really like aggressively. They didn't have any weapons or anything, but he comes over aggressively to me and says, Madame, and then he said a bunch of stuff, and all of a sudden, my alert is up because he's almost in my face, and he's saying something which I don't really understand, I'll be honest, because I was so like blown away by what was happening. And I knew, somehow instinctively, I knew that if I said one frickin' word, that was not going to be good, because even though with certain things I say, I can sound somewhat French. I certainly can't guarantee that. And if they guessed for an instant that I was a foreigner, I think it would have gotten more aggressive. I just had that feeling. So I knew I couldn't say anything. So I just gave him a look like, who the frick are you kind of thing. I mean, it really was just kind of like, what? And he says a few more things. Nothing, I mean, from what I could identify, nothing sounded really insulting. I think he was just thought he was funny and being a comic and whatever. And so, finally, I just kind of, gave him a dismissive look and shook my head at him. And then he goes, "Oh, Madame," and then he took off with his friends. They were already a little bit ahead of him, and he caught up with them, and they're all laughing and joking like, kids do. And I wasn't really that shaken up because I never felt like I was personally threatened by him, but I did feel uneasy about it because I don't remember anything like that ever happening in the US. And then afterwards, after I got back to where I'm staying, I had this weird, it hit me that somehow the scene reminded me something like out of the movie A Clockwork Orange. If you ever saw that back in the 70s, there's so many scenes in that are just like astounding and like horrifying, and yet Kubrick did that movie so beautifully that even though it's horrifying, it's amazing to watch. But anyway, what it reminded me of is how the kids, the young people, would go out and they would harass people out in the streets, and like they'd wear masks and stuff, and then they were even like kicking people, and I mean it got really aggressive in the movie, and I hadn't seen that movie probably in over 30-40 years, and somehow I thought that's what it reminded me of. And it fortunately was just the one kid. Like I said, if all of them had been wearing a mask like that, I would have been really scared, to be honest with you. So I wanted to share that while I'm at the park. This is where it happened, and I'll catch you when I get home. So I'm back to my home, and the title of this video is about, is it safe in France? Because that's where I'm at, and I just thought I'd have a little bit of a discussion with you about my perceptions of this. So I shared that initial story with you of something that just happened about a week ago to me. Like I said, initially I probably wasn't going to share that on this channel, but in thinking about it afterwards, combined with the fact that I found out about the bus attacks, which also made me think of A Clockwork Orange, to be honest, and then combined with some stuff that happened this week, I just feel like I do have to talk about the safety issue. Now, let me just say off the get-go that where I'm staying, I don't feel unsafe at all. The building I'm in is a locked building. You need 2 keys to actually get in just to the building. It's in a residential area. Have not felt unsafe here at all. When I go out and go to the little market and walk just down the street, I have never felt like it's a sketchy neighborhood or anything like that. So that's a very positive thing. But there are obviously places in town that are not that safe. I think I had a viewer message me that I guess the bus attack took place in one of the unsafe areas of town. And so I guess that makes more sense. But I'm going to share with you next something that happened to me this week, which, again, it didn't scare me. I don't want you guys to get the feeling I'm like terrified, because I'm not. But I do want to discuss this, because especially if you come to Europe, and again, I can only speak from where I'm at. I'm not generalizing to all of Europe at this point. As I go to different places, I will share with you my perceptions of that. But I cannot speak to all of Europe at this point. I can only speak to where I'm at. And I can't even say, I didn't have enough experience in Paris to really know if, I know when I was in Paris 23 years ago, I never felt unsafe. When I was there, when I first got here for like 3 days, I really just didn't have enough. I wasn't out enough. I wasn't exploring enough to really get a feel for that. I didn't feel unsafe. The hotel I stayed at most of the time I was there, it felt like a very safe area, so I had no problem with that. But anyway, let's get back to Perpignan. So I went out the other day, and it was raining, like really raining. Most of the time we've just had drizzle here and some misting and not real heavy rain for the most part. But this particular day I went out, and it wasn't like a downpour yet, but boy, it turned into a downpour. And I went and had some lunch first and had like a salad. And then I wanted to go down to the Monoprix store, which is it's kind of like a Target in France. That's how I would do. In fact, didn't make that up. That was actually how it was described online. So it's like a French Target. But it's a fairly small one, the one that's close to the Old Town area, or is in the Old Town area. So anyway, I start walking down this street, which is really for pedestrians only. There's no cars on it. And all of a sudden, it's pouring rain, and this man jumps out from like a little cafe area that was open to the right. And instead of just like kind of approaching me, he literally almost jumps in my face. And I don't know what nationality he would have been. He looked to be, like an ethnic person of some kind. He had really dark hair. He had a beard, a dark beard. But he was speaking French, so I have no idea what ethnicity he might have been. But anyway, he said Madame, and again, it was kind of like my other situation with the kid in the park that, he's speaking to me and I can't understand what he's saying because he's speaking really fast. I assume he was asking me for money and he didn't touch me, but he was really close to me. And again, I knew instantly that I should not say a frickin' word as far as language, because if he guessed that I was a foreigner of some kind, then it might be worse for me. So I just kind of, gave him a negative look, kind of like scowled at him. And then he's still kind of in my space. I mean, he wasn't preventing me from walking totally, but he was kind of almost in front of me. And at some point, like a few seconds later, I just threw up my arm and went, no, like that. And he backed off. And so that kind of shook me up because I've never had anybody approach me that aggressively before that was like panhandling or something. I'm sure there's a cultural difference involved. So, but anyway, so then I make my way down to the Monopoly store. And I see already as I'm approaching it that there's several other people, men, begging as people are entering and exiting the store. And so now at least I saw that coming. And so when I walked in, I just shook my head at them and walked in. And the same thing when I came out. But there was maybe two or three people begging right at the store's entrance, which I thought was interesting because I thought, why isn't the store telling them to get away from their, bugging the customers going in and out? I mean, that seems odd to me. But anyway, because of that incident that day, especially the guy that jumped really almost in front of me, and then seeing these people aggressively, and again, it's much more aggressive than in the US. In the US, you'll see people that'll go, okay, can you spare some change? Or, do you have any money? Or I know, I'm hungry, or, whatever. Or they have a sign, they fly a sign. But you don't usually get somebody in your face. So again, I assume it's a cultural difference and it's not as unexpected here, maybe. I don't know for sure. But the thing is, between that incident and then between that incident, the incident that I read about on the buses, and then, or the incidents on the buses, and then my experience at the park, it occurred to me that, there is something to be wary of here. I mean, I'm not sure that I would say that I feel a lot of fear about it, but it's definitely something to be wary of. And that is that, I just have to be extra vigilant, which I am now ever since these couple of things happened. So now when I'm walking, I'm really kind of looking more in all directions even than I was, because the first probably week or two I was out walking and going around town, I just didn't really have any weird experiences. So I just didn't think it was a big deal. So now I'm aware, and I think that that's a good thing. Plus, I want to assure you, I do not go out at night. I've been like that for a long time, as far as like especially if I'm in an unfamiliar place, I don't go out after dark. The only way I would do that is if I was with a group of people that I knew. Otherwise, no, I don't do that. I didn't even do that 23 years ago in Paris. I came back to the hotel. It got dark around 6:30 at night, and I just didn't go out after that. And so, to me, I'm careful anyway, in the sense that I don't go out after dark. I'm very aware of my surroundings. I was raised in a city environment. I am a city girl. I was raised in the Washington, D.C. area. And even though I grew up in Alexandria, which is kind of the suburbs, it was still a big city. So my mother was very safety conscious. So she, hounded it into me growing up. So I'm very aware. I don't want you guys to feel afraid for me, but I just wanted to talk about this because being a woman alone when you're traveling, and I'm really addressing those of you out there that are women, okay? If you're a woman, and especially if you're an older woman, just be aware that when you come into, especially another country, and you're very unfamiliar with the customs, or what is considered normal. Like I said, the way these guys were panhandling, maybe that's considered normal behavior here. And so you just need to be aware of that and learn about it as much as you can, and keep yourself safe as much as you can. I didn't do this video to create a lot more fear around this. I'm kind of glad that some things happened that kind of, maybe made me more aware, basically, than I was about this, because I think, awareness is key to anything in life, but it's definitely important. I got the sun coming in really like strong. Let me do that. Anyway, I think awareness is really key to just keeping yourself safe as possible, and not putting yourself in unnecessarily bad situations. So like today I went out and I went on the bus down up because I had to go to a little bit north of where the what I consider the main hub is of the city. I know there's more areas of the city I probably will not see because this isn't a tiny town. So I'm not going to see everything that's here. But anyway, took the bus there because I didn't want a hugely long walk today. I still walked about a couple miles. But so I did that, and I went to a new place. I had to go to a pharmacy. I did, some walking around. I sat on a bench a couple times. And then I started shooting this video in the park on the way back. So, but today, it was good. I didn't really, but it is interesting. I will share one more quick thing is that I have now noticed there are more people generally that are walking around that either, I don't know if they're homeless, but they look like they're poor. They look like they might be beggars. I have noticed more of them lately. And I think it's just because now my awareness is kind of tuned into that. Like I've always noticed when I go by the Galerie Lafayette, which is the main department store, there's always not ever seems like every time I've gone by there's a guy there that has like a big bag of like a sleeping bag and stuff with him, and he has a dog. And I noticed today when I walked around the side of that building that two police officers who were on bicycles were kind of talking to him, and it didn't sound like it was real. They didn't like take him away or anything, but I think they did tell him to leave. So there might have been either a complaint or maybe they just see him every day there, and so they have to occasionally remind him to move along. I don't know what the deal with that, but I've seen that guy almost every day I've been over there, and I've never seen him harass anybody. So the thing is, yeah, there are obviously poor people here, and there are probably homeless people, and probably more than I thought at first. So, and I think that's, we see that in most places in the world right now, to be honest. So anyway, did not intend to scare you with this. I just wanted to share my experiences and how it has shaped my resolve to be more protective of myself and to be more aware. And that's how I'll move forward for any place I go now on this trip. So anyway, and I'll share other, as I'm in different places from now on, I will probably do at least a video that talks about, do I feel safe here? Kind of thing on this same kind of theme, because again, especially for my viewers out there that are women that want to travel alone, it's an especially important topic. I think men in general, even if they're older, do not feel the same level of vulnerability as women. I think we can all agree on that. So I think this is a topic that's particularly important for women. So until next time, keep moving forward. Be kind always, and take care. Bye.